Tiger Woods' secret deal has finally been exposed, and the golf world is absolutely stunned. But here's the shocking part: what is Tiger really planning? Why was this deal kept under wraps? And what could it mean for his future? The truth is about to come out. Golf just went through the strangest reunion in its history, and the man who helped make it happen never said a word about it in public. While every headline chased the score, the real story was happening in a boardroom, where a 50-year-old golfer with a rebuilt Achilles and 7 back surgeries behind him was quietly voting on a deal that could end a 2-year war inside professional golf. No press conference with his name on it. No victory lap. Just Tiger Woods doing what he has always done, shaping the outcome from a seat most fans never think to look at. And buried inside that deal is a number that stopped people cold. One of the sport's biggest stars agreed to walk away from as much as $85 million just for the right to come home. Stick around, because by the end of this you will understand why that number exists, and what it says about the golfer Tiger Woods has quietly become now that his playing days are nearly finished. Here is where things stood heading into 2026. Tiger hadn't competed seriously in years. The conversation around him wasn't about winning anymore, it was about whether his body would let him swing a club at all. But away from the cameras, Tiger had spent the last few seasons building a different kind of presence. He sits on the PGA Tour's policy board. He's been part of the player equity program, the plan that lets top tour players actually own a piece of the tour itself. And through the fall and winter, while the sport braced for what LIV Golf's defectors might do next, the tour's leadership was working on something nobody had tried before: a real pathway to bring some of those players back. Think about how strange that is. This is a guy who, back in 2022, publicly defended the PGA Tour against the players who left for Saudi money. He was one of the sport's loudest voices for loyalty. Now he's sitting on the board that voted to let some of them return. That's not him flip-flopping. That's a man who understood the fight was never really about anger, it was about leverage, and leverage shifts with the situation. On January 12, 2026, new PGA Tour Commissioner Brian Rolapp sent a memo that caught the golf world off guard. It introduced something called the Returning Member Program, a one-time pathway for elite players who'd left for LIV to come back, but only if they cleared a brutally specific bar. You had to have been gone from the tour for at least 2 years, and you had to have won one of 5 events between 2022 and 2025, the Players' Championship, the Masters, the US Open, the PGA Championship, or the Open Championship. Run the numbers, and exactly 4 players on the planet qualified: Brooks Koepka, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, and Cameron Smith. 4 names out of the dozens who had left. This wasn't a wide-open door. It was a very narrow one, built with intent. The board that approved it, sources confirmed, included Tiger Woods himself, and the window to apply closed just 3 weeks later, on February 2nd. Of the 4 eligible players, only 1 moved. Brooks Koepka had already parted ways with LIV that December, and within weeks he applied and was reinstated. He made his return official at the Farmers Insurance Open. But the tour didn't just wave him back in. As part of the deal, Koepka agreed to a $5 million charitable contribution, and he gave up his equity grants in the tour's ownership structure for the next 5 years, along with any FedEx Cup bonus money for the season. The tour itself pegged his total lost earnings somewhere between $50 and $85 million. That is the number that made headlines, and it was never an accident. It was the price of coming home. Here's the twist almost nobody expected. Rahm, DeChambeau, and Smith, the 3 other players who technically qualified, all turned the offer down. Each one publicly recommitted to LIV for the 2026 season. Not one of golf's biggest returning names actually walked through the door that was built specifically for them. Commissioner Rolapp had been clear from the start that this was a one-time window, not a new standing policy, and for 3 of the 4 players who could have used it, that window simply closed. But the story didn't end there. Not long after, reports surfaced that LIV Golf itself might be losing its financial backing from Saudi Arabia's investment fund once the 2026 season wraps up. Suddenly, representatives for other LIV players started quietly exploring their own routes back to the PGA Tour, this time through far more restrictive terms. Patrick Reed took a different path entirely, skipping LIV play in 2026 to compete on the DP World Tour instead, with his sights set on a possible PGA Tour return in 2027. The tour is expected to sort future returning players by exactly how they left in the first place, whether they formally resigned their membership or simply walked away. So where does Tiger actually fit into all of this? He's not the commissioner. His signature isn't on the memo. And that's really the point. His influence isn't about the title on his badge, it's about the trust he's spent 2 decades building. When you're asking players who stayed loyal through the LIV years to accept their old rivals potentially coming back with a stake in the very company they helped hold together, you need someone in that room who actually bled for the tour when it mattered. That's the role Tiger has quietly taken on. And while all of this tour politics was unfolding, Tiger was making a completely different kind of move in business. His apparel brand, Sunday Red, went international for the first time, launching in a new overseas market through a major retail partnership. At 50 years old, with his competitive future genuinely uncertain, Tiger isn't just planning his next round anymore. He's building something that outlasts his playing career entirely. Put it all together and a bigger picture forms. Tiger Woods isn't just golf's greatest champion anymore. He's becoming one of its power brokers, someone with a hand in boardroom decisions, a stake in the sport's next chapter, and a business empire that keeps growing whether or not he ever wins again. Golf spent years bleeding trust, split down the middle by money and loyalty. The returning member program was the first real attempt to stitch some of that back together, even if most of the players it was built for said no. So here's the real question heading into the rest of this season. Does Rahm change his mind before his contract quietly runs out? Does DeChambeau, whose deal ends after this year, make a different call the next time a window opens? Does Cameron Smith eventually follow? And does LIV Golf even survive long enough financially for any of this to matter at all? Every one of those decisions runs, in some way, back through a framework that was built with Tiger Woods sitting in the room while it happened, a framework that looked generous on paper and cost the one player who actually took it a fortune in practice. If you want to see how the rest of this plays out, stay subscribed, because golf's next chapter is still being written, one boardroom vote at a time.